Welcome to Business Beyond Borders, the go-to podcast for CPA firms seeking transformative insights. I'm your host, Laurence Whittam, and with each episode we'll uncover key insights, best practices, and invaluable resources tailored for CPAs. From trending strategies to diving deep into outsourcing and offshoring, our experts will help in all areas of your business. Hey, everybody, and welcome back to Business Beyond Borders. So we have a great episode today. And again, we're in the festive spirit a little bit. So I think this will be released a little bit after Christmas, maybe in the new year, but we're just a few days before Christmas now. So really appreciate Kathy joining us today from the BDO Alliance. So nice to see you, Kathy.
Oh, thanks for having me, Laurence.
And again, Kathy's the director of relationship and client experience, and we've known each other for a few years since I've been involved in the BDO Alliance, like in a couple of different capacities. And I brought her on because, again, we've been doing the rounds of the different BDO Alliance meetings, and it's always great to hear from the different speakers there of just what the profession looks like. And again, I figured it would be a good rounding off to the year or beginning of 2025, worst case as well, like to say what we look like now in the profession, what you're seeing. And again, looking at it from a little bit, staffing is still a conversation that's going on, right?
Absolutely.
And it's outsourcing is obviously one of those things, but technology is there. There's a lot of technology questions and conversations going on, a lot of automation and the ChatGPT things going on. So wanted to maybe come full circle, right, and ask a few questions around that and get your opinion of what you guys are seeing and go from there. So do you want to give a quick intro and start us off? That'd be great.
I am happy to introduce myself. Thanks, Laurence. Thanks for having me. And we've known each other for a few years now and had discussions on this evolution of what we're seeing in the market. And all those things that you mentioned, they're all interrelated, of course. And it's not going to go away anytime soon. One of the things that I get to do as the Relationship and Client Experience Director here at the BDO Alliance is listen and hear. I run all of our roundtables that we have. So, and I work with a team that does this, but I get to listen in from different perspectives and different vantage points from firms across the country, whether it's tax or assurance or operations or HR or training or managing partners. And so I get the different tidbits from everyone. And this is where my knowledge comes from. It's not necessarily a report we're putting out through the Alliance, but it's something that I've gathered from observation. And a lot of times my observations are ahead of the curve. I was on a webinar yesterday and they're reporting, the facts and saying, here's the data that supports that. But we were talking about these things much earlier. So it's good to know that we have kind of a leading indicator. Before coming to the Alliance, I also had this opportunity in some smaller associations in the CPA profession. So I worked at two other global associations and helped as a volunteer and helped start a third one. So I have this association connection throughout my career. And I've also worked with some of the leading practice management consultants. We ran a think tank that had conferences and insight. So I've been in that space and observing for many, many years. And before that, I'm not naturally a CPA here. I got pulled into the market through working with a local CPA firm at the time that turned out to be one of the largest regional CPA firms once we were done. So, you get pulled in to this profession, as you know, Laurence, with your background.
Yep. I was going to say no CPA myself, and again, you get hooked. It's an interesting profession, and again, I enjoy it. I enjoy being here.
There are some great, fantastic people. It's a dynamic place when you look at the evolution of what's happening, and it's a small community. And those three things make it really attractive when you can get into this part of it. And it's hard to see what we're going through right now, and some of the resistance to change that has to happen, is happening, and has to happen.
Yeah. Now, and for those that don't, I'm sure everybody knows who BDO is, right? But for those that don't know the BDO Alliance, right? And again, it's it's a huge community, but maybe you give a bit of insight into that again, because I know that the great thing is how many events, how much firms are together in a lot of cases, both in person and virtually, and in all these different roundtables and partners and directors and managers down to staff level people are going to these events in a lot of cases. So you get to listen and hear about what's going on in those firms in so many cases. But can you give just a tidbit of background about the BDO Alliance for those that don't know?
Well, yeah, thanks for asking. Because sometimes I forget to give that context. The BDO Alliance is an association of CPA firms and ancillary service providers that maybe aren't in the CPA realm, but also provide services that clients may need or that those firms themselves need to grow and thrive. We are the largest association in the U.S. of CPA firms by quite a bit, and we've got over 400, about 425 total members, organizations, with 200 and almost 60 of those being CPA firms. So that's a lot. That's a lot of knowledge, experience, perspective. And we've got, I think, by last count, around 30,000 members, individuals. So we've got critical mass here to leverage.
Yeah, and I've been some of the events are enormous, right? And it's but you get to hear from, because of the roundtables and things, you hear from the masses in a lot of cases. Like sometimes there's the regional directors, right, who are hearing from certain areas and what's going on, but you get to collect it all together essentially from the firms, which is great. So it's awesome to have you on. So can you share from the staffing side of things, right? And from one of the major problems that has been sort of discussed about over the past few years now, really, in a lot of these, any event that you go to, there's going to be a huge keynote on it or anything like that. And I think firms that I talk to have seen less of a immediate need for it in the past year compared to, because I think it escalated drastically during COVID, and there was just so much change that I think it then went to the top of the list, and it became like, I need to do something right now. Now firms are getting to calm down and think about things a little bit, but what are you seeing across firms from small to larger? Like what are they doing? What are they focusing on when it comes to the staffing side of things?
Well, it's funny. There's this, the stages of grief, right? And there are stages of grief within this profession dealing with this issue. And some identified it right away and moved through those stages very quickly. Others, are still in the beginning stages and are processing it much slower than others. And those stages, where in grief, denial, and then you admission, and then, you go through that. There's 3 stages for this particular area, I think, are whining about it and complaining about it and just talking and expressing frustration. The second phase, which some firms are still in that phase very clearly. So the second phase is planning. What are we going to do? How are we going to address this? What pieces go into place? And are we ready? And what needs to be done to make those pieces work? And then the final stage, action moving forward. And you can tell by working with different firms, absolutely, there's some that move in a matter of a week from whining to action because, they're just innovative. They're catalysts. They're happy to fail fast. They're going to try things. They're going to see what sticks. There are other firms that are slow to adapt and are still thinking about some of these solutions. And maybe, we'll be on to 7 different problems by the time they've addressed that. And that's kind of what they're hoping. So I've seen different approaches at different stages. And then the first one was obvious, right? Well, we just have to recruit more. We're gonna find new people. Let's see. Let's change our strategy. And all these things are still going on, of course, and now paying off, maybe because we've seen, as you mentioned, a softening in the market a little bit, some more available talent domestically. So then hiring internal recruiters instead of just using headhunters. So investing in those and having more of a customized experience, building alumni programs internally, trying to get people to come back. Employer branding. So the marketers switched from trying to find and target new clients way more to client finding and targeting new employees. And so the branding, if you look at from websites, advertising, et cetera, has a way different feel than it did, 4 years ago. 5 years ago. And then, the other thing, which is kind of obvious, and I'm seeing this be reevaluated now, is opportunistic hiring. We've got a great person. I don't know if I have the work. I don't know if I have the spot, but man, we're going to bring them on. So those are the recruiting side of it. Then they went to, okay, we did all that. There still aren't people. Where do we find people? So we're still on the time and talent side of it. And they went beyond our borders, which of course, from your background incredibly well. Let's look at offshore resources. Let's pull that in. Let's also, find interns. Let's go deeper into the intern pool, and we're going to train them up and use them in ways that we haven't before. Let's look at non-traditional employees. People want to come in for just busy season. We'll welcome you in. We'll train you up. You can take the entire summer off. We'll be flexible. You can work from home. We'll have part-time employees when we never did before. And then the final thing, which is still growing and budding today, is non-CPAs. So, hey, if we can take something that you do, scheduling, workflow, client contact, and push that out to people who are non-CPAs, that helps us with our CPA crunch, because those CPAs are doing CPA level work. That's what we want. So those things started to help soften a lot. And now, of course, I just came from digital CPA, and digital CPA, no surprise to anybody, but has become, I think, digital AI CPA, because it's all about AI. So technology, and starting with automation, and now, the AI options out there, has really been the next level. And that's in tandem with the other things, but technology and the interest of technology. But it has some downfalls. And I think this is sometimes where firms kind of, are a little shaky still, because it's expensive. It takes a lot of time to vet. And by the way, we're so busy doing the work because we can't find the talent. So who has time to really vet the technology? And then, it's not guaranteed. What if it doesn't work? What if we invest all this time and money and we're getting a minimal return on our investment? It's difficult. And fail fast is not something that we hear traditionally in the CPA firm realm. We hear it in some more innovative areas, but fail fast, not a hallmark. So technology is a little slower to take off, but it is a strategy, right? If we can get technology to do what 75% of a person's job, then it's a great investment. The other two that are obviously happening right now, client management. So now we couldn't change the number of people. We are trying to change how we do the work. And then how about who we do the work for? So we only have X amount of time. So let's make those X hours count. We're going to be as profitable as possible. We're going to do work that we like to do. We're going to do work that our people like to do so that they can stay and will stay with us. And we're going to make this as interesting and as beneficial as possible. So culling clients, and not just culling them because they're not paying, or culling them because they're declines, but culling them because they're pains, or they're not in the right industry. So this is another thing I'm seeing firms say, we're really going deep in our industry focus. This is our opportunity to do it. And this is where we're going to grow. So if we see clients outside of this realm, we're going to have to be really strategic about who we take that is not on target. So vetting processes become much more difficult. Saying no, finding referral relationships. We have that a lot in the Alliance. Hey, I got this great client, but that's not in our profile. Does somebody else want them? Can we pass them along? BDO does this with our members. We do this from member to member. And it is really helping our firms to find that sweet spot. And then the final thing, and I won't spend a ton of time on this because we both know it and everybody's talking about it left and right, is just M&A and PE, right? I've done all this. I'm exhausted. I'm working on my clients. I'm trying to make my employees happy. I'm trying to do technology. I'm trying to, figure out how to deal with the strategy of my firm, I am exhausted and tired. How do I address this all? I can't. So who's going to take that burden off my shoulders? So either I can have somebody come in and invest in our firm and help push those things forward, or allow me to focus on one thing and take some of those administrative concerns off my shoulders, or I can sell to another firm. And that has fueled, I think all of this has fueled this flurry of activity in the market. Yeah. So that was a very long answer to a short question. Sorry to be that way, but all those things are like all moving around like crazy.
No, I mean, there's a lot of factors to it, right? At the end of the day, it's not just like one problem that's going on, right? And I think one affects the other very quickly, right? And especially with the technology, the recruiting, the staffing, like if we talk about staffing, all those things affect that specifically, right? I mean, the out, and I won't say it as a bad thing being the out is M&A, right? It's strategically, if you can identify that you cannot do it alone, right? In a lot of cases, it's a way to continue to grow, right? And it's a way to, again, whether it's private equity, whether it's another firm, right? They may have been through that already, and they're able to help you on a much quicker path, right, than you doing it yourselves, right? But it is, I think, the somewhat of a decision that a lot more firms are making now very quickly, right? As to, okay, I don't want to go through this. I'm going to go and either merge up, or I'm going to go get invested, right? Get another investment to take some of the chips off and to take some of the responsibilities off in a lot of cases. So it's a big factor, especially this past year. Like that was, again, a huge thing that went on in the profession. So now when we look at the future a little bit, right, with all these factors, like what are you seeing in the next sort of 5, like more recent, like in the next 3 to 5 years, and then in the longer term, in the next 10 to 15 years? Like, are there any discussions going on, or are there any thoughts around sort of like what that looks like from more the pipeline and more the staffing and recruiting side of things?
Absolutely. So it's funny because I was just on a call yesterday with a group of firm leaders, and they said the gap. And their gap is widening. And I don't know if you've heard this term, but we've said it again, between the partners and the staff. And so the difference between this is that the partners feel like they are moving down. They're trying to cover this gap in work. And the staff is pretty much holding solid. In fact, hey, if I don't have to move up, if nobody's pushing me to move up and take those extra 20 hours a week, I'm not going to do that. That's fine. I'm cool. And it's okay because I don't really need to be partner. I see what those partners are doing. So that's the difficult thing. So our partners are now burnt out. And the problem is with this, it's widening. And so there is nobody in the gap. And if I had $1 for every time I hear, if only I could find a manager/senior manager in tax, I would be thrilled, right? So those people aren't there. And how do we build that model to fill that gap? So even though the talent crunch may ease temporarily, like we've kind of seen, I don't think it's at that level and those people. And as this model starts to crumble a little bit more of people, knocking on the door trying to be partners, we're going to continue to have these issues until we can fix that progression model. So, and it's just getting worse.
And one of the things, like going into some of these firms, and again, I'm seeing when we're looking at processes and documenting their processes, and whether it's from tax, audit, accounting, what I'm seeing is, again, they generally have stuff documented from like a staff level up to maybe a senior level. But then as soon as it gets to a manager or a partner level, like they really, the industry or the profession itself sees it as these situations are too nuanced to now document, right, to some extent. And where I don't think that really is the case, but I think it takes time to then go and start documenting case by case what things should be. And yes, you may have different options for a client, right, as to which path you take with a certain result. But it's things can be documented. I mean, we've seen it. I mean, things can now be generated out of all this information that's available. But if you don't document anything or crack the data and everything, like, it's very difficult to be able to do that, right? So, and I think that's also where that's creating that gap, because now there's even the educational programs. Educational programs go up to a certain level, and then it's really based on every individual partner is responsible to train them in a certain way, and it's the way that they do it, right? Rather than the way that it should be done in a lot of cases. So I do see it hands-on in some of these firms as well. Like that is creating that gap. And like you said, I mean, the younger generation that could step up into it, they just don't want to, because they've seen it as, no, we have to now take on more responsibilities, more time, right? When we don't want to, right? In a lot of cases. And in a lot of professions, we don't have to, right?
Yeah.
Take that extra on. We start to see a reduction in hours when you get to certain levels of C-suite. And so very interesting. Now, so in
can I add two things to that?
Go, please.
Yeah, I think your points are extremely valid. The two other accelerators in that problem is that, first of all, the typical way to train somebody is for them to watch and learn and get years of experience. Well, we need to accelerate that. People, especially using some of the technologies that we have and the offshoring and the talent that is not progressing in the normal or traditional way, right? They're coming in and reviewing very early. So they're not actually doing it. They're not hands-on and don't have that experiential learning that we used to have in the past. The other part is that everybody is so stinking busy. They don't have time to stop and pause and say, hey, Laurence, take a look at this. I want to show you. Or come along on that meeting with me. No, I need Laurence working on that tax return and getting 5 more out by the end of the day. So I'm not going to pull him into these other learning opportunities. And that obviously in the moment seems to be a great decision. But long term, we are all suffering and our firms are suffering from that.
Yeah, and that sort of goes very well into the next sort of question around sort of what you're seeing firms, like when we're looking at that profession, like they're building different cultures. I hear it all the time that now firms are really focusing on culture, right? And you've already mentioned it about firms changing their websites to make sure they're focused on the people aspect of it to attract new talent in a lot of cases. So like, what are firms doing as a whole, like when it comes to reducing hours, whether it's like going away from time tracking and sort of pricing in different ways? And then do we use AI? Do we not use AI, right? Do we use outsourcing offshore? Do we not use it? Like, what do you see firms are doing when it comes to that cultural side?
Well, one of the first things they're trying to do is they're trying to make the profession and the idea of being a public accountant more attractive. And the things that they feel are maybe misrepresented about the profession, they're taking it on. So I see a lot of firms not only representing their own brand like they used to and competing with other CPA firms, they realized, hey, it's us against the rest of the world. We're selling the accounting profession now. And so they're going into schools, they're holding programs, holding workshops, and they have become more of the flag waver for the profession, which is a whole different way to market. And you're looking at an entirely different group of people that way at much younger ages. So that changes your recruiting strategy and your messaging quite a bit. They also have looked at the people and through feedback and said, what are the things people hate? Why are they leaving our CPA firm to go work for industry? Well, they don't like the pressure. They don't like the hours. They don't like busy season because, hey, they like to ski. Or wouldn't it be nice to be able to, get out and get away for February break with my kids? I've never done that, or spring break. I've never done that before. And then the final thing that tends to come up a lot is tracking time. What a pain. I don't like to have to do that, especially in, 10-minute increments. This is insane. Yeah. And so those are levers that firms are looking to pull. And we have firms that are working towards or have achieved 45-hour max year round. That's all that we're going to ever require of you. And we've adjusted our talent strategy that way so that we're going to reduce it. So you're working what a normal, thought of a work week would be across all industries. Time tracking is a big one too. It's annoying. It's tough for people. And so some of the strategies around that is let's go to more value-based billing. If we have a good idea, and coming back to being very industry specific, working very closely with your clients and knowing what you're doing and specializing, you have a good feel for what you should be charging, what the market will bear, and what goes in your inputs, your outputs, the parameters of your engagements, and defining that. So they're going to more value-based pricing and or subscription-based pricing. I see movements in that direction, and or because they're both possible, they use AI to track the time. And so that takes a lot of the pressure off of their team to remember what they did 8 hours ago. I can go back and look at a list that I spent, 15 minutes on this particular client. Let me adjust that because, I got a phone call during that time. Okay, it's actually 10 minutes. Great. Release. And so it makes that easier on them. One of the other really strong cultural changes, and I would be remiss if I didn't mention this, is investing in non-attest, potentially non-CPA service lines. So things like CAS, client accounting services, are going through the roof. Outsourced CFO, outsourced controller, even to some extent outsourced HR and technology services. Those are really cranking. There's several different reasons for that, but culturally, the firms are looking at, these people are under some of the same talent crunches that we are. If we can provide with a smaller team services to a larger audience, we are solving a problem, and that's a growing market opportunity. But it's highly profitable. It's highly leveraged by technology. I don't need to have CPAs. I could have people, and I can develop them. I can train them. I can deal with, them wanting to be specialized in a specific industry or them wanting to change software. We can adjust, and accordingly, we can align them with our clientele. There's also less risk, and they're a very entrepreneurial mindset. So they tend to adjust to the market quickly and easily. So it's a lot more pliable with what's going on today than some of our traditional, like a test, which it's highly regulated. You can only move so much. This, you have more play. And I see culturally firms growing that and leveraging that more. In fact, several firms that have said, we're getting out of audit altogether, because this is where we want to be. We'll marry this with our tax practice, and that's where our growth is.
Yeah, and the firms themselves, at the end of the day, now they become less firms, more like a business, right? If you look at most other industries, like they have different people in different divisions, right? And by doing so, you get different thoughts in there as well. You don't have everybody with the same mindset and same track of thoughts because they've been through the same education program at school. And so it will help overall, right, in terms of helping them run more like a business, right? I see more so in the larger firms, like a lot of them have, like one of the implementation was adding C-suite, right? They have no partner, like they're not touching any clients. They're focusing on the firm purely in terms of whether it's a CFO, a COO, CEO, just to run it from that perspective, right? And it's, again, I think it's a necessary need for these firms because then it's hard to run outside of what you do, right? You know what you've done for so many years, and it's now something new, right? But I think that transition is moving, at least, which is good. So now, is there anything, as we come to time, is there anything else that you think would be super helpful for anybody to hear about, or any other thoughts going into 2025, what people should be thinking about or getting, that will be big news coming up or anything like that?
Big news. I don't have big news, and I don't know if this is earth-shattering, but all I can say is if you are not looking at technology solutions and AI, and you don't have to be implementing, looking, watching, playing, trying, experimenting, you need to be doing that now. Because all of your competition they're investing. I've seen some really big platforms. A little plug for BDO's digital team. We actually create internal chat. We have Chat BDO, but it's a chat, Impact Global, whatever you want to call it, that you have internally to help your team use AI in a safer space. So there are lots of those opportunities. People are custom building solutions in CAS and tax, and of course in audit we've seen DAS and other AI-enabled technologies. But watch it, learn it, and I would suggest, if it's not you as a leader or as the person who's leading any specific service line, find somebody on your team who is tech savvy or at least tech interested, and let them go. Have them be a vetter. Say, okay, at every team meeting, you're going to come up and talk about what's happening in tech. So go play, take 5 hours a week and experiment with this stuff. And maybe that's a lot, but maybe you can, gauge that based upon your firm size. Don't leave it all up to IT. And that's another thing. I think it's a fallacy to think that your technology team is always going to be the one to vet these things. It should be also done very clearly in the service lines.
Yeah. No, what are the big problems in the firm, right? What are some of the more current problems? And look at technology as, again, is this an option for us to utilize that will fix the problem, right? In that sense, not just plugging it to a person, right? And again, look at it from, there's the outsourcing approach, there's do we need to hire somebody internally? Can we go to somebody else to help escalate it? Like, whatever the case is, there's so many different options for you as a firm to use. And again, I think every firm needs to be looking at all the options in a lot of cases, right? It's not just, don't pick one and go with that. That's not going to be a long-term solution.
No. And if you do, you get married to something. When that one doesn't win the race and something else does, then you're behind because you're with them. One other thing I wanted to mention, I think this is really important. I just watched a presentation, shout out to Charles Hyland of the Growth Partnership, who does the IPA survey and the Rosenberg survey. And it was very clear that offshoring, a lot of firms are doing it and are if they're not doing it, they're looking to do it going forward, or they're going to double down and do more of it. So it's becoming a part of their long-term strategy. And that is exactly what I wanted to highlight. It should be strategic, and those people should be included in your technology. Those people should be included in your training. Those people should be running alongside where your firm is. Don't think of that as just a plug and play or a short-term solution. If you're doing that, you're also shooting yourself in the foot. If you think, oh, that's like a Lego piece that I can plug in and then unplug and plug back in, it shouldn't be like that. And the firms that are really embracing those teams, because it is part of the team as an offshoot of your firm or another office of your firm, are the ones that are winning and making it work the best. I'm sure this is your specialty area, but that's my observation. Agreed. And a lot of the BDO, again, I go to a lot of them, and they're doing it in different capacities that fit them. There are ways to do it, which again, some ways fit better for a firm. Some countries fit better for a firm than another one. So, but really, really appreciate it, Kathy, and thank you for coming on. And I wish you obviously a happy Christmas, and hope that everything goes well in the holiday season. And and if anyone wants to reach out to Kathy, we'll post her details that you can reach out to her directly, or reach out to me, and I'm happy to connect the two of you as well. And really appreciate the content today. Thank you, Laurence.
Thank you for tuning in to Business Beyond Borders. I'm Laurence Whittam, and it's been a pleasure bringing you impactful insights tailored for the modern CPA firm. Remember, the world of accounting is vast and ever evolving, and we're here to navigate it together. For more resources and episodes, don't forget to subscribe and reach out to our experts. Until next time, keep pushing the boundaries of your business and explore the limitless possibilities beyond borders.